Hello there, and welcome along. The Gardener Ben here. I've received loads of messages for the first time in many years on a particular subject, and I thought I would make this little tiny informative video just to give you a little bit of an introduction to the problem that a lot of you are experiencing in your garden for the very first time, which I think you really should see as a plus point. Now, this particular video is not aimed at anybody in particular. This is not a calling out or a little bit of a shade in any direction, because I know all of us are very precious about sharing our outdoor spaces with nature. Behind me, beavering away in my homemade bug hotel, are some leaf cutter bees, and I've received quite literally dozens of messages this year across all of the platforms I operate on of people experiencing leaf cutter bees for the very first time in their garden. And I really hope that you are going to celebrate them like I do here. And once you know a little bit about leaf cutter bees, you'll just realize just how very, very special they are, and that we should be seeing their presence in our gardens as a real celebration, as a real pointing towards the fact that many of us are now moving away from pesticides and welcoming more nature into the garden. Now, leafcutter bees are a type of solitary bee. They live individually. The females will seek out small hollow tubes or rotten timber. They sometimes use plant tubes, or like they have done here, little bamboo canes, which I've cut into sections and placed into this bug hotel with a whole multitude of different textured things, everything from broken terracotta pots, scrunched up chicken wire, old pine cones, all put together to bring texture into this area to really entice a huge amount of pollinators and other overwintering insects. Everything from earwigs to ladybirds, and of course the leafcutter bees are using this particular structure as a habitat. They create small tunnels and over a period of time gather together stores of nectar and pollen. And as soon as there is enough nectar and pollen to sustain one grub in one of these tubes, the leafcutter bee will then lay one individual egg in per tube and seal over the very, very end. Now, you can't see this here, but they seal over the end with a round piece of leaf. That symbolizes that tube is now full. There is a grub been laid in there, and it will then actually slowly but surely wake up. It will be born and then eat through the stores of nectar and of pollen that their mother has put in there, and slowly turn into another leaf-cutting bee before it then burrows its way out into the world and goes off and sets its own own little habitat up. So this is a really nice thing to have in the garden. I know they do some damage to your plants. They're obviously tearing round holes in the leaves of your roses and other garden plants, but they really are something to be celebrated, and you should really be welcoming them into your garden with open arms. I here, because there's a tap just off to my left here, absolutely love standing here and filling up my watering can, watching the solitary bees go in and out. Now, a single solitary leafcutter bee will actually produce around 20 eggs. She will aim to create around 20 tubes in one location. So I've got one particular bee that's working really, really hard in this bug hotel, capping off slowly but surely. She's making more and more caps as she lays her larvae and caps them off with enough saved pollen and nectar for each of those little grubs to get themselves fully grown and establish themselves before they make their way into the garden. So now that you actually appreciate and understand a little bit more about the leafcutter bees, try and see them as a welcome guest in your garden rather than something that's doing a whole lot of damage. They won't do a massive amount of damage to your particular plants. They certainly won't be removing enough leaves from your plants to cause any massive amount of damage, or for a plant, for instance, to die. So just put up with them and find where in the garden they're nesting, and just stand and watch them for a little bit, because they are absolutely enticing and beautiful to watch as they beaver away hard at it, I say, gaining nectar and pollen for their youngsters that are going to seal up in these little wooden tubes, and will slowly but surely join the ecosystem in your garden.